that's all that actuator does, is to raise and lower this brake, nothing else. So it's what we call a full-length brace. You will notice that kind of out here on the end, it's not quite on the mesh, but it's a very effective solid, keeps the mesh from freewheeling or whatever. And what will happen is when you run the duckbill in and the mesh is taken and wraps and then the knife drops, at that time the brake is going to come off just ever so slightly to let it freewheel, and then as soon as that knife drops, then the brake's going to go back on to keep it from freewheeling again. So
this is really important.
Yeah.
Show you how to manage.
Yeah. It's got to go over every time. Just like your wife says on the toilet paper. Yeah. If you ever put the toilet paper on wrong, she slaps you and changes it, you know.
It's on the chart.
What's that?
Not my
Yeah, it's on the chart up here too. So, but it's got to go over. Think toilet paper, I guess. You know, but and then all that you do is go under this spiral roll here, right here. See this slot? Mm-hmm. You go through the slot. You open the duckbill here. This flap is the duckbill, just like a duck's bill, and you thread it through there, and then you want it about down to the bottom of this channel, okay, which this is. A lot of guys, you know, I mean, you can, it's probably a good idea to do roll of mesh, maybe even cut off and make it straighter, but you could also tie a ball and put it through, you know, some guys like to do that. And that's all you have to do. I mean, that's it. So it's really a really simple mesh system. So then you're going to roll it back up and lock it back in place. But then the other key, you don't have to spread it out or anything. It'll do that itself. The other key though is this collar here. And the collar on a 5-foot wide baler, you got 64-inch wide mesh and 67-inch wide mesh. So if a guy's ran 64 but all of a sudden buys 67, my mesh won't go on right or whatever. He's got the collar just like this one over on the other side that would have to be taken out to the final hole to work. Otherwise his mesh it's not going to go on correctly. So you want the mesh centered. So is it 64, 67? Again, if you got a 4-foot wide baler, it's 48 or 51, I believe, on that. So the wider net will give you the over the edge. The narrow net kind of just maybe barely over the edge. So when you put this collar back on, you might want to look, you got holes underneath here. They put them on the underneath because they don't want them to fill with chaff or whatever. There's 2 sets of holes. You want to put the collar back on, and when you put it back on, you want to leave some play in the. So see there, I've got about a 1/4 inch or so of play, because if you don't, especially if the baler would set out and the rain or whatever get humid, the cardboard inside the mesh can swell, and then it won't turn, and it just creates a break. So like and I've had a number of calls where guys, my mesh, I put in a new roll of mesh, and it's snapping back. It's not, you know, I think that's the first thing you want to check is that. So if we got enough play, we got it over, under, whatever, we're just going to roll her back up, put her back in there. Matt, lower that brake back down. Okay, ready to go do her. So here's your actual actuator for the mesh system itself. These springs can be adjusted depending on the quality of mesh as well. And if you got a lower quality mesh, you want to keep it tighter, better quality mesh, you can loosen it up. You know, again, so if a guy is having trouble, if the mesh would not be feeding quite right, this is number 1 to check. This would be number 2 to check, to change these springs and maybe loosen them up or tighten them up.
Is that what it does with the Dawson manual?
I believe so. So those are a couple of main things if your mesh, you know. Now the other thing is, and we'll open the tailgate, we'll do a cycle on the duckbill as well to make sure it's going in where it needs to be. okay? But like right now I want to talk about this density.